So this video is going to be a bit of a continuation on my Cougar 3 thoughts and impressions. Please consider sticking around to the very end. A lot has happened, and I think there's a lot of really good safety information in this video, especially if you're a paramotor pilot flying the Cougar 3 or considering the Cougar 3. So let's roll back to part 1 of this series. I unboxed the Cougar 3 and flew it around, got my first impressions. This was a wing that I was considering to be a contender for my next wing. In part 2, I took the Cougar 3 out to do some speed tests because the top speed of this wing was something that was somewhat marketed as being a defining feature. What I found on my very first full speed run was that this wing was going way faster than the manufacturer had predicted, or I even thought it would go. They said it would do 50 miles per hour, and I was hitting an average of 57.5. That's a 15% increase.
Holy shit! What in the That was the fastest thing I've ever seen.
I turned around to do another speed run, and this is where things got a little bit interesting. At full speed on this wing, in calm conditions, zero brake input, and with a smooth application of the speed bar, I experienced a small collapse on my right wingtip.
Yep, that.
Now the reason why this is so surprising is because this shouldn't happen. This is a configuration you're allowed to operate the wing in, but yet it collapsed. I know that full speed collapses can get much more dicey than this, so I was a bit taken back, and I kind of decided that my feeling was there might be something wrong with this wing, and I was done testing it at full speed. So that's basically where we left off in the last video. Now let's fast forward what happened after that. I decided that it wasn't a glider I was interested in owning full time. I sent it back to my friends at Team Fly Halo out in Salton Sea, advised them exactly of what happened. I showed them the video clips before they went live and all that. And a fellow at the Salton Sea, Tyson Russell, decided that he wanted to go out and try it for himself. So Tyson is up at the Salton Sea. Once again, conditions are calm. He had zero application of brake and very smooth application of speed bar. He's slowly applying more and more speed bar, getting up to that full speed, and wham. What seemed to happen was the right tip did its little collapse thing, and that cascaded into a full frontal. Next thing you know, the glider's under him, he's above the glider, and it just ragdolls from there. Tyson started at about 650 feet. His glider is not recovering, he can't do anything to recover it. So Tyson chucks his reserve, gets it out into the wind, and has about 8 seconds under his reserve. It was extraordinarily close. Once again, I want to reiterate, conditions were smooth, zero application of brake. He was doing everything right. There was no reason for the glider to do this.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah, so I just want to say, super good job to Tyson for staying alive in that situation. Tyson actually also agreed to sit down with me on a video chat and kind of discuss the incident, so we'll play that footage now.
Hey, Tucker.
What's up, man?
Not too much. How are you?
Not too bad. Let's see.
Good.
Switch cameras. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, I heard you've been flying for like 20 years. Is that?
23, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And currently, what kind of glider do you fly most often?
3 ride, 16 meter.
And I saw on Facebook, I think you had some pictures with a Cougar 2. Did you have much time on a Cougar 2 as well?
Yeah, I've probably got 400 to 500 hours on a Cougar 2.
Wow.
Altogether, I went through, I think, around 5 of them altogether.
Wow. So did you have a lot of time at full speed on the Cougar 2 as well?
I did. So I love flying cross country, and I have always been really comfortable using speed bars on wings. A lot of hours on using speed bar.
Yeah, and never an issue on the Cougar 2.
No, none at all, thankfully.
So when you got on the Cougar 316, from my understanding, you flew it a little bit and got to full speed, but you felt a little sketchy, and then it was the next day that the incident actually happened?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, so just like every wing that I've ever flown, I try and be methodical about taking it baby steps and getting really comfortable on it and doing what I need to do to keep myself safe. And then felt pretty comfortable with that, and then opened the trim tabs all the way, and then started to press out the bar, and I felt this weird little flutter thing. And I've never experienced that on any wing that I've ever flown before. So it scared me enough and made me nervous enough to pull back on the speed bar and continue to kind of play with it. And I was like, something just doesn't feel right with this. So I ended up not going any further with it. And then the following day, I took off because I was down at Salton Sea, and I was taking off right in front of my RV on the beach there. And went and flew the 16 around for a little while, but didn't play with the speed bar too much. I was just throwing it around. And then flew by the main event center there by the RV park, and Canyon Team Fly Halo had an 18 sitting there for me. And so I landed right next to it, popped it open, hooked into it, took off, and then I was like, well, I'm going to try this 18 to see if I have that weird little flutter thing with it. Mm-hmm. Took that up at a good elevation, and I was able to go full speed bar with it. Felt really comfortable, and I was like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just being weird about it or hypersensitive or whatever. So landed at the same spot, threw the 16 on, went up and flew that, and almost immediately went up to be able to do the full speed bar, because I was like, something's either going to happen or it's not, but I won't know until I go full speed bar with it. Right. And when I did go full, in the process of going full speed with it, it actually, I wasn't feeling that flutter thing for whatever reason. I was like, okay, it was me, cool. And I looked over to my left and to see if the pulleys were connected or really close and touching. And they were just almost there. And the next thing I knew, I felt my right-hand side go to where I just completely dropped. But it was severe enough where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going. So I immediately pulled in my speed bar. And next thing I know, within a second, I'm upside down and I'm being tossed around like a rag doll. And then my left arm ended up somehow getting pinned in, either with the lines from me falling and them catching around it or something. I don't know exactly. Yeah. So when I went to go for my reserve, which is on my left side, I couldn't reach it. I couldn't move my arm or anything. So the only thing I could think of is, okay, I've got to grab my other arm and use that to somehow get this reserve out, pull my arm out, or see if I could reach over to the reserve handle. And I immediately dropped my right-hand throttle and started yanking on my arm. And after a few seconds, I was thankfully able to get it out. And it was pinned in pretty good. I had really good bruises on it afterwards. Wow. And bruises on my rib cage on that side as well. So something really just locked it in. And then as soon as I got my arm out, I immediately had that handle in my hand and threw it out. I didn't clear my space or anything because I was watching the ground coming up, and it was coming up really fast at that point. So I was like, my only chance is to get this thing out and hope and pray that it opens, and it did. Beamer 3, yeehaw.
Nailed it. Did you feel like, compared to your free ride or compared to a similar size Cougar 2, did you feel like it was going faster?
Yes, it was definitely going faster. So my top speed on my free ride at my weight and configuration is 53 miles an hour. In my GPS calculations from my Fly Sky High and my iPhone app, and then the GoPro Hero 8 with the GPS data in it. I was going upwind in about 3 to 4 mile per hour wind, and I was doing about 52, 53 miles an hour. So I calculate that out. If my guesstimates are right, or at around 55, maybe 56 miles an hour, but I wasn't at full speed bar yet.
Right.
I was in the process of pressing it out. So yeah, that sucker was and is fast.
Yeah. So basically after that, initially I had my concerns. I was like, there might be something going on with this wing. Tyson goes and flies it, bam, thing blows up, and we're like, okay, there's definitely something wrong with this wing. So what they decided to do was send the wing back to the manufacturer, Niviuk, and see what they have to say about it. We wanted to give them a chance to kind of evaluate the wing. Maybe they sewed something on wrong and they could fix it. But before we published anything, we wanted to basically get their input on it. So in the meantime, there was yet another incident. My man Tony over in the UK was flying a 20-meter Cougar 3, and his very first time pressing the speed bar, he took about a 50% asymmetric collapse on the left side of his wing. It basically barrel rolled him into this recovery, and he came out back on heading. Once again, Tony reported back that conditions were smooth, he had 0 brake input, and he had a smooth application of speed bar. He's doing everything right. So let's fast forward to March 3rd when Niviuk responds. So Niviuk responded with this press release, which also came along with a YouTube video. I'll put the full press release on the screen so you guys can pause it if you want to watch it, but I will read some of the key points and summarize it for you. So first off, in this press release, they mentioned me by name. After seeing Tucker's video and the questions that arose, Niviuk decided to check and fly the Cougar 316 Tucker Gott was flying and give you and our professional network some feedback as you requested. Take note there that it says, the Cougar 316 Tucker Gott was flying. Next, they say, from a technical point of view, we can conclude that the glider has no manufacturing, neither construction or design defects. So they're saying there's nothing wrong with the wing. They go on and use a lot of kind of fancy language dancing around, I feel like personally, but the conclusion that I can draw from what they said is 2 factors caused this incident, and they're referring to specifically my incident. One, they say that turbulence was a factor, that a pilot flying this 16-meter wing at such an advanced level needs to take extraordinarily high care of the atmospheric conditions, aka the turbulence. I can tell you from my personal experience, there was no turbulence that day. I know you guys have to take my word for it, but you can kind of tell also from the GoPro footage that the wing's not twitching around. It was a very stable day. 2, their other point was basically saying that you need to be active piloting in full speed mode. Now that doesn't quite sit with me that well, because the normal definition of active piloting means hands on the brakes, pulling on the brake lines and feeling the feedback of the glider and reacting to it. We know in full speed mode, full trim and full bar, you are not allowed to pull the main brake line. I think what they're doing here is basically taking a shot at me for having my brakes stowed. Now, obviously this is not a smart move, for the primary reason that if something did go wrong, like Tyson's incident, my hands were not on the brakes and I would not have been ready to correct anything. I likely wouldn't have even been able to find my brake toggles. Now, this is a risk that I was willing to accept solely to get the video shot for you guys. One final thing, when you go all the way down to the bottom, it says, once again, to make it easier to understand and more visual in order to not get into technicalities through a heavy text, Niviuk has done some real tests to show you the behavior of the same Cougar 316 flown by Ramon Morales. That to me implies that that is the glider I flew, the glider Tyson flew, and which was sent to them, the same glider. So let's take a look at the YouTube video that they released with this press release. Now I'm gonna put it in the corner right here somewhere so that I don't get in trouble for copyright. This is Fair Use Act. So basically, I wanna give a summary of what happened in the video. Ramon is out in Bordeaux, Spain, where we just were a couple weeks ago. He's flying the Cougar 316, apparently the same one that I flew. And what he does is does the full speed test, trims out full bar, and he only comes up with 80 kilometers per hour or 50 miles per hour. That left me kind of scratching my head because I know I hit 57.5 and I know that Tyson exceeded 50 miles per hour. Now, if you do the math, 50 miles per hour versus 57.5 miles per hour, that's a 15% increase. And I don't think that's any minor difference. There's factors like humidity, air temperature, air density, all kinds of things that can make a difference in the speed, but I really don't think it would make that dramatic of a difference. 15% is pretty major, 7.5 miles per hour faster. It's also interesting to take note here that the glider, when Ramon was flying it, was loaded 10 to 20 pounds heavier than when I flew it. When you load a glider heavier, typically they fly faster. So even more reason that I'm kind of wondering why he only hit 50 miles per hour. Now, let's take a look at something extremely suspicious. If you take a still frame of my foot cam when I was flying the glider, you'll notice pretty prominently that there's 2 Niviuk badges on the A risers. Now, remember we said that in the press release they mentioned several times this is the same glider Tucker Gott flew, and then you look at the video of Ramon, you look at his A riser, and there's no badge there. I just want to point out the facts are the facts. They said in their press release that it's the same glider. You look at the video, there's a missing badge. Now, if they switch the risers, I have no problem with that as long as they own up to it and say, we made a mistake. What we found was the glider was made to go too fast, and all we had to do was put a different riser on it that doesn't let it go that fast, and problem solved. But that's not what they said. They said there were no design flaws, and the glider was perfectly fine. All right, so I'm back, and in the time it took me to edit this very video, there's been another press release from Niviuk. So since the last press release, nothing has really happened. I haven't heard of any other incidents. I haven't posted anything regarding this wing, but Niviuk came out with another press release. So they said, following up with all the feedbacks we got from our professional network regarding the piloting demands of the Cougar 3, Niviuk has concluded the following. Despite Niviuk assures there is no safety issues with any of the Cougar 3 sizes, and after proving it through certification and through the videos published by Ramon Morales, Niviuk has decided to limit the speed of the glider for all sizes. Niviuk's aim was to develop the fastest glider in its category and in the market while maintaining the comfort and safety being those common characteristics of all Niviuk glider models. And so the 80-kilometer target has been achieved by all means. However, Niviuk Professional Network believes that the Cougar 3 is too advanced for the pilots targeted at its category. Therefore, Niviuk has evaluated all the feedbacks from the professionals, which we trust and believe know the market reality very well, and decided to limit the Cougar 3 speed from gliders manufactured next. For all pilots flying already with a Cougar 3, we offer the option of changing the risers in order to limit the glider speed. We leave it up to each pilot to evaluate their own skills and decide what is best regarding the use of the glider and types of flights. So, the positives. They've somewhat acknowledged that there's an issue here, that they are going to be limiting the speed of the glider on all the new Cougar 3 models. But at the same time, there's still a lot left up to question. They're saying that they still don't think there's an issue with the glider, but they're making a change based on other pilots' feedback. My opinion is they wouldn't be making a change unless there was a problem with the wing. I think it was just made to go a little bit too fast, and dialing back the speed is likely going to fix that problem. However, the other thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is they say that the network believes the Cougar 3 is too advanced for the pilots targeted at its category. And based on my experience, and especially Tyson's experience, I don't think this had anything to do with skill. Applying the speed bar is, yes, an advanced maneuver, but it's not something that you have to be a top-level paramotor pilot to achieve. There's basic things like not flying in turbulent air, applying the speed bar smoothly, not applying brake pressure, and those things were all taken care of by both myself and Tyson. Therefore, I don't think it's a matter of pilot skill. I think it's just that the glider was designed to go beyond the physical limitations of what a glider can actually do. The other thing that's weird about this is it's a voluntary thing. So if you have a Cougar 3, you can decide if you want the new risers or not, but I have yet to see any info or publications aside from this press release from Niviuk saying you can do this. In my opinion, if I was the manufacturer, I would issue a full-on recall and say, everybody, we're gonna reach out to you, send your gliders back to us, we'll change out the risers for free and send them back and make everyone so much safer. Overall, I think that this final press release publication from Niviuk still leaves a lot to be desired, and that's one of the primary reasons I'm making this video. I want to share all the facts that I have at my disposal with you guys, especially those of you considering or those of you that already own the Cougar 3, to be able to make an educated judgment. Safety is definitely number one, and if you own the Cougar 3, the first edition model, I would highly suggest you get in touch with Niviuk, switch out your risers, and until then, do not go full speed on this glider. Another takeaway from this whole situation, which I want to pass along to you guys, is when you're on an uncertified glider, especially in a small size and especially flying full speed, these are uncharted waters, basically. I was a bit naive to this fact when I first did my full speed tests. Knowing what I know now, one, I would have gotten more altitude for my first speed tests, and two, I definitely would have had both hands up on those toggles, but not engaging any brake pressure just so I was ready. And three, I would have primed my reserve handle and probably double checked that reserve just in case it had to go out. Another takeaway is regardless of the glider or the manufacturer, the type or anything, full speed in general is gonna bring in more risk. If you're gonna use that speed bar, especially while trimmed out, hitting your maximum speed on a glider, you gotta be careful. Until you become very familiar with the glider's characteristics, I definitely recommend going up really high and having a reserve when you do that sort of thing. So this video has gone on for a really long time, and I mean, we're in lockdown on coronavirus anyway, so hopefully it gave you guys some good entertainment. And I really hope it gave you guys some important safety facts to consider. Please take it as that. I wouldn't be expressing any of these things if it weren't for the sake of safety. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.